Okay, wait a moment. You can see my screen now?
I can see yourself, but not your slide.
Okay, I cannot see myself, but I'm not. The sharing is not to do. I just get out and get in again. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Sorry, guys, happens sometimes. We are too old for this technology, but.
So
yeah, welcome back.
Okay, here we are again. Let's see if I do share. Do I get it now?
No, not yet.
Okay. Share screen. I don't get it shared.
So nothing's coming yet.
Huh?
Nothing. Ah, yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we see the slide, not full screen, but probably we can.
Oh, yeah, I can put it on.
Yeah.
Okay. You see it?
It's not getting full screen. I don't know why.
It should be full screen now. At least here it's full screen.
No, it's not full screen.
No, it's a little bit.
Yeah, probably we can go on with this.
Well,
yeah, let's do.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rob Jongman. I'm from Wageningen University and Research, and Wageningen is in the Netherlands. And I'm going to talk to you about the developments, also mainly the recent developments that we had, and a little bit of history of the North Sea. The North Sea is like the Chinese Sea, or the seas around in Asia, is shared by a number of countries. And the first slides, you see already, oh, wait a moment, I have to go back. You see already this brown part, that's the Netherlands, with Great Britain, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden for part, and Norway. Okay. I see that they said my connection is unstable, but okay.
Sorry, also your slides they're not changing. I still see only the first.
Only the first. I'm the second now.
Yeah, no, it's still title page on.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah.
That doesn't change.
You see the second slide?
I see the title page still.
Because I don't see. But it's not the starting page, but the second page.
No, it's still the same. I mean, at least on my screen.
Okay. Then we have a problem. Let's see. I have on the page. Let's see.
Usually there are different sharing options. You can choose either to share the whole screen or the PowerPoint. So probably you need to share like the other
whiteboard, I see.
Probably you share the whole screen and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, screen, PowerPoint. Let's see. Wait a moment. Remote control apps or participants.
Yeah, I would have suggested that probably I can share.
Yeah, you have my presentation as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I have this as I have it as PDF only, but probably we can. But actually, you can use the PDF. I think it will be fine then.
Huh?
You can probably use try to use your PDF from your site, not the PowerPoint. You have sent me the PDF file, not
okay.
the PowerPoint.
I'll try
slides.
that one. I'll try that.
Please try that one. Probably it would work.
Yeah, I'll try that one. Wait a moment. Let's see. Then I'll have this one. One videos. Dynamics and also printing. I have to put it. Wait a minute. I have to put it on.
So guys, thank you for your patience. I'm still hopeful that we'll manage.
You have to wait a moment. I'll just try again.
Okay, please.
Yep. Okay. Can you let me in for the other and again?
Oh yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Shows me a whiteboard. Okay, I'm back again. Let's see if it works now. Let's see. How to get that done? Do you still see nothing?
I see it full screen now.
Okay. See full screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. And it moving?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah?
Yeah, moving, yes.
Okay,
This is the map.
Okay, good.
So hallelujah, we can start. So
Okay,
sorry guys for little technical issues. It ate some time, but I think we have enough still.
Okay. Let's start. Well,
please, let's start.
Yeah. You see here, actually, what I'm going to talk about on this first screen is Europe, the Netherlands. On the left side, you see in the brown the line the Netherlands. In the middle, you see the North Sea, surrounded by Britain, Great Britain, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden. And you see the activities on the North Sea. Windmills, for electricity, and you see the old landscape, the shallow inlets, the shallow parts of the sea, and that's I'm going to bring you to take you through this from history to present. The North Sea is an area that's shared by 7 countries. It's managed by, and they manage it together for planning and management. Like the Chinese Sea or the seas around you, you share it with your neighboring countries, and you have to deal with it. You have to deal with your neighbors to make agreements how you manage it. If you live in Japan, or if you live in Malaysia, or you live in Philippines, you have to deal with your neighbors. That's what we have to do as well. It has always been an important route for transport for people and goods. We went to Asia through the North Sea, and there we have our house. It has therefore always been a battlefield between the countries. But it's also the basis how we became wealthy and how we developed ourselves. So it's a very important source of wealth, but also a sort of war. So that's what's happening. And we are now moving to a way that we are more thinking about planning and cooperation. The North Sea, here you see it. So North Sea exists. Here's the Netherlands, here's Amsterdam, and here's London. And here, this is Denmark, and this is Skagerrak that brings us to Sweden and Norway. And it's a shallow sea, very shallow. It's going deep to the north. I'll tell you more about it. Characteristics: the area is 750,000 square kilometers, a lot of water, 94,000 cubic meters of water. The average depth is not so deep, it's 90 meters, and max some deep pits 725. So it's not like the seas around Malaysia or in Asia or around Indonesia. The surface temperature is north, so it's 12 to max 20 degrees in August, and in February it's around just above the freezing point, and it is salinity is 25 to 35 promille. So that's about the physical characteristics. And there are different, as I said already, there is a gradients. There's a northern coarse gradient, coarse sediments, and there are finer sediments, and these finer sediments are in the middle of it. And along the coasts, there are coarser sediments. And we use these sediments, the fish is using it, and it's a basis of the wealth of this sea. You still see, here's Great, this is Great Britain again, and this is the coast, the continental coast, Denmark, and the northern countries, Sweden, and this is Norway, Sweden and Norway. So that's how it looks like. It's just to get you an idea what we are talking about, and where later the discussion will go on. This is Germany, by the way. This is Denmark, and you see we all share this part of the sea. So that's why it also can be a basis of conflicts. But the coasts are also different. This is Norway. This is fjords. The mountains reach the sea here, and there's a very deep. The sea goes very deep into the country, and this is all marine and is connected to the sea. And at other sides, on the Belgium and Dutch coast, you have shallows. This is the former access of Brugge, the Belgian town of Brugge that was famous in the Middle Ages, so 500 years ago, and this was the access to the harbor. Now it's a shallow and not navigable part of the sea. And this is the coast of Sweden, the Skagerrak, near Göteborg, where the land is also rocky but shallow. Compared to the Norwegian coast, it's very shallow. And this is Denmark, where a lot of islands and a lot of small boats, and the sea is very calm, and so it can be used by tourism and all kind of fishermen. And there are bridges from the different islands to the different islands. In that way, it has a little bit of the Japanese coast, Japanese sea, where also the islands are connected with bridges, and people are making a lot of use of all these connecting sea straits. And it's the British coast, where the coast consists of calcareous rock. So the white cliffs of Dover, what we call here in Europe. And this is where nature is, and all the shallows along the whole coast, on the east coast of the sea, it's a very rich for marine life. Seals and birds are living there, and they are forming a part of a very important part of the sea mammals for the northern Atlantic. And this is the breeding site and the resting site of these mammals. Then you can see that the North Sea has a lot of water coming in. If you look at this, here there are all the Skagerrak is this one, and the Norwegian Trench. They're all kind of fjords here, and rivers, small rivers coming in. And also here, there are, in Denmark, there are small rivers coming in. But in Germany, the Weser and the Elbe are bigger rivers coming in here. And the Rhine River, that goes all down south to here, to Switzerland, comes in through the Netherlands, as does the Scheldt and the Meuse. So this part is a contact zone of the sea with the feeding rivers. And so there is a contact, and you see here already lines in the water, and these lines mean that this is the divide between the areas that different countries manage. I'll come back to that. The North Sea is surrounded not only by rivers, but if you look at the red, it's surrounded by urbanized land and densely populated countries. This is London. This is the central industrial area of former industrial area of Great Britain, and this is the Netherlands, Belgium, and the central part of Western Germany, where a lot of urbanization is ongoing and has been ongoing, industrialization. So there are very industrial areas that are in these catchments that feed the North Sea. And only in Sweden and Norway, there's very little, and in Scotland, there's very little urbanization. So that's where we are talking about. So it's very, and that means if you look at the land sides of the sea, then you have here Amsterdam, Lille, Paris, and London, and then there are high-speed train networks. There are urbanization, there are suburbanized areas, and there is airports. There are several airports in it. So it's, and what we have, of course, a lot of connection between from the urbanized parts, connection to other parts of the world. So that's where we are. And where is the main industrial part? That's, if you look at it, these are the North Sea ports. And Rotterdam is the main harbor in the Netherlands, and Belgium is the second one. And Antwerp in Belgium is the second one. And then Hamburg. So the continental ports have the greatest share of the trade. And then it comes Amsterdam. And only then, after that, is Birmingham and London in the UK. So that's not so important in industrialization and in, also in population, because there are less people living in Great Britain than in the rest of Europe. So, and you see that Norway, Bergen, is a very small, a relatively small harbor. So there is a lot of transport and a lot of activity, but everywhere it's shared over the whole system. And the North Sea is central in this. It's a very important. It's important for its economy. You see the harbor, the trade routes, the cable, and there are cable networks and there are resources. You can find oil there, gas, and you can find sand if you, because if you have to build on lowlands, you need sand, and there is wind. So these are the resources that we have, and that we can use for our economic and environmental business. There's also food, because it's rich in fish. And there are social relations. It's important. It used to be a very important shipping route for relations between countries. You see in there's several parts of Europe the same kind of houses as in the Netherlands and in Poland and in Denmark. There are comparable houses, and there are relations, there are family relations between countries. So you can imagine that there is a lot of personal and family relations within around this North Sea, and it's also a crossroads, a very important link for fish and birds. Bird migration, the birds from Siberia and northern Scandinavia, they fly over the North Sea down south to Africa for their migration to avoid the winter periods, and they go in the summertime. In the summertime, they go to the north. In the winter, they go south. So that's very important. And the fish is doing the same kind of thing, moving through this sea and making use of it. Migration for people, that's already old. The first were the Vikings, the Norwegians, who went from Sweden and Norway to England and conquered a part of it, to this part of England, to Ireland, and he even went to Iceland and Greenland and America later on. But this was their first conquests were here. They were trying, they were expanding their living from Norway, the coasts and Sweden and Norway to England, where the soil was richer, and they could, and they fought there with the people living there. That was not only in the 10th century, but also in the 17th century. There were wars between countries, especially between Great Britain and the Netherlands, because they were the main sailing nations in that period of time. The English against the Dutch, and that means there were wars, there were fighting, and that was being painted by our famous painters. And fighting went on until the Second World War. This is the Battle of England, and where the Germans fought against the English. Well, that is happily, that's the history now, because we are not doing that anymore. We are now living in the European Union and trying to get things solved by talking to each other and making treaties. It has been important for fish. These are the old fishermen ships in the Netherlands, and this was the, let's say, the 19th century fishing, and this is the present day fishing. And you have to, if you do this, then you still have to realize that the way you can fish here is causes a decline of the population of the fish populations here, because it's going too hard, too much. So we have had to make deals. How much can you fish? And so to leave the population of fish into in the sea. You can see it. The fish population is declining, but we are still fishing, not fishing less. You see, if you look at the Danish fishing is going down here, but here it's 772 200,000 tons of fish in 2009. I'm sorry, and it's in 2015 it was more than about 100,000 ton more, and in 2019 it was 900,000, so it was even more. But still, the fish populations are declining. That means you have to talk to each other, with each other, to agree on sustainable populations. There is oil and gas production in the sea. In 1999, the production of the North Sea oil was nearly 950,000 cubic meters per day. In 2001, the natural gas production was 10 trillion cubic feet. So it's a lot. And the production of both Norway and UK is expected to decline. These are the biggest producers, to less than 50% of production in the highly productive period of that period, 1999-2001. And even now, at the moment, there's the meeting in Glasgow. They are trying to agree on even faster going down in the production of oil and gas. The Netherlands already decided not to produce any more gas on the land, but that was for only reasons that it also causes earthquakes and these kind of things. Well, if you look what kind of activities are being done and how much takes the area, the mining and mineral exploitation, subsurface oil and gas, that is for the Netherlands alone 160 platforms. Replacement site for dredging, designated site where you can put the sand. There are 6 sites. There are cables and pipelines. Oh, sorry. There are cables and pipelines. There's shipping and transport, of course. There are military exercise areas, ammunition depots and these kind of things. Land reclamation is being done. For instance, in the Netherlands, for the harbor of Rotterdam, there's fishing and aquaculture, especially in Norway, it's a lot. And there's wind energy, use of wind energy. Windmills are being built on the sea. There are recreation areas and there are nature conservation areas. So a lot of land, a lot of sea is being used for land servicing activities. We have and we call this the economic zone. And these economic zones are used by the countries, are divided by the countries, and I'll come back to that. But this is the area that is being managed by the Netherlands. Germany has a comparable part of the sea and is doing the same kind of things. Great Britain is doing the same kind of thing as well in their part of the sea, and Norway and Belgium also. And these areas are different for each country. If you look at how does this look like for the Netherlands, you see that there are shipping routes here going down there because ships have to go not only here to Rotterdam, but also to Hamburg and to other places and to other harbors and to the Baltic Sea. There are areas where we have nature conservation here, and there are areas where we have, you see all these small points where there's extraction of oil and gas. So there are all kinds of activities in the sea, and these activities are managed, this here in this part are managed by the Netherlands, and here this part is Germany. So there are different, all these countries are using the sea before their coast for economic activities and for ecological activities. Then how can you do this? Because you have to agree with each other that you are doing this without getting conflicts. Therefore, there is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. There's an international law, and that's used organizing the use and the public order at sea. So how can we use the sea, and how can we discuss or decide, and who is going to decide on it, what can be done and what cannot be done. That's agreed upon in 1982 and came into force in 1994 because it needed countries to ratify it. And there were 60 countries needed to do it. Now there are more than 150 countries have ratified this law. There's an international law that's also applicable to Asia and also applicable to Africa and the Americas. What does it say exactly? The territorial waters extend to a maximum of 12 nautical miles. That's 22 kilometers beyond this coast. Except, of course, where countries meet. There you have to make decisions. And every coastal country may establish an exclusive economic zone, the EEZ, extending 200 nautical miles from the shore. And so that means there are two kinds of zones. One zone is the territorial waters owned by the country, and you have an exclusive economic zone. That's where you can do economic activities, where this country is allowed to do economic activities. And the rights and the use of that exclusive economic zone for the coastal states is you can exploit and regulate fisheries. So you can do it, you can fish there. And you can construct artificial islands and installations in your EEZ. You can use the zone for economic purposes, so you can make wind, oil, or gas, or whatever. You can have sand from there. You can there regulate the scientific research by foreign vessels. So not everyone can come there and do some research, for instance, for minerals or for fish or whatever. But all foreign ships are entitled to move freely through this zone. So that means the shipping routes that you saw on the map before, these shipping routes, they are allowed. Every country is allowed to go there. And all these activities are only for the country that is owner of that exclusive economic zone. And of course, this kind of, if you don't agree how the exclusive economic zone is, then you might end up into conflicts. Let's see how they look like in the North Sea, because you see that these countries are around it, so around the sea, so that there will be all kind of potential conflict zones. This is Norway here, and this has, oh, sorry, this is Norway, and its exclusive economic zone is around the sea, but these parts, this is Svalbard, and this is the Jan Mayenland. These are islands, and also these have a part of an exclusive economic zone. So this is the maritime borders of Norway. That means they have a management possibilities and a say on these parts. You see that it's very rounded here. That means Iceland, that's living here, that's here, has its exclusive zone until there. Here, and the next one, Germany, has an exclusive economic zone in the North Sea with a very strange form. Is this one, because this is the coast of Germany from there to there, and then it's getting smaller and smaller because the other countries like Norway and Denmark and Netherlands are also claiming part of the North Sea, and they have a part of in the Baltic Sea, a very sea, and they have shared that with Sweden and Denmark. So it's, and you can only do this if you agree with each other on what is actually the economic zone of this country. And that has been decided in mutual meetings with the neighboring countries under the council of under the umbrella of the European Union. And you see there's a lot of activity here in this. I don't explain now what it is, but there's wind energy areas, these, and some protected areas. So, and these are the shipping routes that you saw on the Dutch map. They are coming here, and they go on to the harbor of Bremen here, and the harbor of Hamburg here. So this is the German one, and this is the Dutch one that you already saw. It was formed, and it adds to, actually here you see that it's just shared border with Germany, and here are the shipping routes over this one, and you see there's a very busy part of the North Sea with all these shipping routes from the different harbors in the Netherlands and towards Germany. These are protected areas, so it's a very very much activities in this area. And this is the area of Denmark that is then around. This is Denmark, this is the island of Bornholm, but this is the area that belongs to Denmark in the North Sea, and there is shared with Germany again. And this is the area of Belgium. Also here it's crowded, a lot of shipping routes and a lot of activities in a very small part of the North Sea. To regulate this, to regulate the use of the North Sea and the Atlantic Sea, there is the OSPAR treaty. OSPAR is not an abbreviation of the treaty, but it's Oslo, Paris. Oslo and Paris, they have been meetings in Oslo and in Paris to make a convention for the protection of the marine environment of the Northeast Atlantic. So this is the Oslo-Paris Treaty. That is based on this international law for the use of the sea and is signed in September 1992 and entered into force in 1998. So it's a little bit quicker, less countries. It's also more strict than the UN Convention to make it, because there's a lot of land use, a lot of use of that sea, and they needed a lot of also environmental issues to be solved. And this is not, by the way, the only agreements. There's also the Azkaban's agreement. That's for the sea, for the whales and the whales protection. The Iowa, the Western Atlantic Flyway for migrating birds agreements. So, and there are more, even more, but these are the two most important one to protect sea life. So the fish, or not the fish, the cities here, so those mammals and the birds, they are very important. That's then based on these agreements, we started to work with marine spatial planning. What is that? We do not only have spatial planning for a town, we also have marine spatial planning. And that is originally, it was a management approach to achieve nature conservation. Ecosystem-based management. What is the best management of the ecosystems of the sea, so that you can maintain it, that you can that it can become sustainable, and that the fish or the animals or the plankton and the kelp can survive. Later, there also came economic objective into it, because everyone saw that, yeah, well, we do all kinds of activities at sea and we have to organize that. If you want to make a cable, and you have to a telecom cable from Great Britain to the continent, then you must decide where it can be placed. Then you must not have a conflict with the zones you want to protect, or for ecosystem reasons. So that means you have to discuss how to do this. Marine spatial planning is there now developing towards a mechanism for sustainable marine governance. So how can we manage this part of the sea sustainably, and how can we reduce possible conflicts and resolve conflicts between countries and between the use in this maritime space that we all want to use, because we are all together around the sea and we have to do it together. That's where marine spatial planning is for. And why do this in the North Sea? Well, you have seen the maps. There's an intensive use of resources, and the space you have to place it very well. It's one of the most busy shipping routes in the world. Our relation with Asia is overseas, and as the harbors of Singapore, of China, of Indonesia are connected with the harbors in Europe through the Suez Canal, it ends up mostly here in this part of Europe. So it's busy, and we have to be aware and be sure that things don't end up in conflicts. There's an expected growth and intensification. We will use it more and more. It's international, we all use it, different countries, and you can have conflicts between the users and the countries. At the moment, Great Britain has stepped out of the European Union because they didn't want it anymore. They thought, well, we do it alone. And now there is a conflict between France and Britain about the fishery rights between the two countries. So you want to prevent these conflicts. And therefore, a treaty and a good agreement about it is very important. The objectives of marine spatial planning for the North Sea, that is, therefore, reduce the conflicts between sectors and create synergies between different activities. So, marine spatial planning is meant to make an agreement for how much fish can we catch, where, and how. Well, the moment that Great Britain went out of the European Union, that meant that was the agreement has stopped. So they are now making conflicts and negotiating again about how to do things in the future. It's encouraging investments. If you make things transparent and clear rules, then you have a predictable area and that invites investments. You can also have more cross-border cooperation between EU countries to develop energy grids. I'll show you later. You have to have your shipping lanes. Where can your ships go, and how can we organize this? How can we work with pipelines, cables, and other activities? And where do we have protected marine areas, marine protected areas? Protect the environment through an early identification of the impacts and opportunities of the use of space. So you can use marine spatial planning to protect the environment, and that's what that was the original reason, and that still is part of it. What can we expect in the coming decades? Well, there will be a lot of monitoring and research because we need to know how fish and other sea life is developing, if it's sustainable or not. If you want to fish or if you want to protect nature, you have to look at the soil and disturbance of it, and water quality, and how shipping lanes are being used, and if they're fit for purpose. You have to build with North Sea nature, make better use of the natural capacities of the ecosystem. For instance, for coastal defense, we have a sea level rise problem. We have to diminish CO2 emissions, but also, in the meantime, we have to defend our coasts. The Netherlands is partly lower than the sea, and it will be more lower. So we have real problems then if we cannot defend, if we do not defend our coastal areas. There's energy transition at sea. We see a development that all countries are developing wind energy. I'll come back to that. There's multiple use of the available space. You do not only one thing at the point. So how can you combine functions? How can you develop coastal lands at sea? The Rotterdam Harbor used to be in the country. Now it's more an added piece of land in the sea. So accessibility in shipping, big changes we expect in the maritime transport due to changes in society. You see that the ships that go from China to the Netherlands, to Europe, actually, are getting bigger and bigger. And we are expecting more of these changes. And there also will be other types of transport in shipping. So the container shipping is one of the latest developments. There will be more. The consequence of intensive use, now you have to look well at this map. This is Great Britain again. Here you see, this is the sea. And this is the abrasion of the sea, the disturbance of the soil. This is the Netherlands. And disturbance is these green parts are least disturbed, but here all the yellow and reddish parts are disturbed soils. That means that for the ecosystem and for the use of it, there's a lot of disturbance. It's like when you're on the land and you just plow on your forests, then you have a problem. Well, you have a problem here as well. You have to monitor this, how you can reduce the disturbance, and you cannot see it, but it's there. And you see the disturbance here along the Spanish coast is less. That means these are the parts of the sea that are used most intensively, especially disturbance for fishing, by fishing, and these kind of things are happening. Nature conservation policy for the North Sea is therefore an important part. Area protection. Every country has determined marine protected areas, called the MPAs. That is, we have in Europe the Habitats Directive, and that Habitats Directive is a nature conservation legislation for all Europe, for all participating countries in the European Union. And these MPAs have all been designated, and they do exist and have to be protected and have to be managed well. Species in these designated marine protected areas, that is, for instance, the grey seal, common seal, dolphins, harbor porpoise, river lamprey, shad, trade shad, sturgeon, salmon, all kinds of species that are living there or making use of it. And these MPAs are also important according to the Birds Directive. So that's the bird protection legislation for pearl divers, red-throated divers, ice divers, all kinds of common terns, Atlantic terns, little terns, black terns, all kinds of species that are that have a special status for protection. So that means, but also you have to plan areas for energy. This should be energy, an energy islands and wind turbines. Denmark, for instance, on their part of the North Sea, have determined that they wanted to have wind turbines here in that area, and an artificial island, to manage these wind turbines. That's one of the things that you do, that you can do in your exclusive economic zone. And that's why they have done this, and they have used this. Denmark, this is the coast of Denmark, has a lot of wind energy already on land, but on sea you have a lot of wind, and you can make use of that sea by bringing the energy from this island onto the land and then use it there. So if you look at it, the Danish energy island, that is this is a vision. How could it look like? And what they said, well, we have all these windmills here. We don't manage that from the land. You make an artificial island because the sea is not that deep. And so let's say how it could look like. We have an airport, a small airport. We have an artificial lake. We need fresh water. Workshops and some green areas, some windmills on it. And there's a road network, of course, green spaces, and a harbor. And that's a visualization of this island. They expect it to be 6.5 square kilometers, like the island near Hong Kong. You make an island and you can do some activities over there. The costs are £1 billion in pounds. It will give power to 18 million people in maybe Great Britain, the Netherlands at least, Norway, Germany, Denmark, and Belgium. At least there are agreements of the Danish with some of these, with the Netherlands, with Germany, with then Denmark, of course, and with Norway and Belgium. Not yet with the British, but that is mainly to do, I suppose, with the Brexit, leaving Britain leaving the European Union. So this is their vision for the future, and therefore, if you want to have such an island, such a big island, with all kinds of activities and a lot of energy, then you need agreements and you need smart planning. And that's what they wanted to do. Denmark decides to construct this world's first wind energy hub as an artificial island in the North Sea. It was in February 2021. It's just a few months ago. The parties behind the climate agreement have decided on the procedure for the ownership and construction type of the energy islands. They want to have a public-private partnership. You see, it's very young, so it has to be elaborated. It has to be worked out, but there is at least a political agreement with Germany, the North Sea and Baltic Sea, the Netherlands, and with Belgium. So it's starting to get a process, and that this might be a future development in the North Sea, that one country will start to develop activities, in this case, wind energy development in the North Sea, and shares their activities with the others, with the other countries, the neighboring countries, and do things together. So it's not. This is not wishful thinking. There is already a plan. There's an agreement, and also Germany and the Netherlands are building wind mills of these wind turbines in the North Sea, and they have to agree how to do this together, how to bring the energy to the land and replace fossil energy by wind energy from the North Sea. That's the future, at least that's what the countries think here. That will be the future of clean energy, and a future that is also being hopefully agreed upon now at the moment in Glasgow. That means, what does it mean for fossil energy extraction? In 2020, Denmark reached a deal with the companies on fossil extraction in the North Sea. And they say, well, we're going to cancel the future rounds of it to extract oil and gas. So they stop it because they want to completely go to wind energy and sun energy, solar energy. The deal also established a final phase out of fossil extraction by 2050. So it takes time, because if you build this kind of things, it takes time. And they had plans for that transition of impacted work, because everyone who works in the oil and gas industry need a new job and have to be educated to work in wind energy. And Denmark is at the moment the first oil producer in the EU, in the European Union, and is the biggest producer worldwide to establish a final phase out. So they're the first to phase out oil and gas. They have agreed upon this, and other countries will have to follow, or will follow, as we expect. So, but that's the way things are going at the present. So this is, I think, an outlook of the developments from the past to the future of the North Sea and the use of the North Sea. It's not an empty place. It's a very crowded place where we, as European countries, are making use of, and that should be planned very, very well. So thank you for your attention, and I hope I can answer some questions if needed.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, a lot. Yes, indeed, the first remark in the in the chat. Indeed, we'll share all the slides
Okay,
through
that's
the
good.
e-learning system. And please, Rob, if you have any other reading to support or to explain some of your cases or statements you made, please also send it to me, and I will post it. It is password protected, so it's not like open to the world.
Yeah.
So like you can also send any copyright protected materials. It's not a problem here.
Okay.
Yeah, and indeed, yeah, we will share all this through the e-learning. Please, any questions? If you feel shy, you can type them in the chat, and we will read them. If you don't feel too shy, then just unmute yourself and shoot the question. But first, please ask me a question. So we have the first question in the chat. What are the major challenges you face in developing NPA in your country?
Developing, its management and its supervision. That's an important issue, because you cannot always, on the land, you can have your marine protected areas. You can supervise them very easily, but the Dockers Bank, that is on the near Great Britain and Norway, that's in the middle of the North Sea. It's very difficult to protect that. So you have to, and what you see now is already that some of the NGOs dump rocks in some part of the sea or one of the protected areas to prevent fishermen to fish on these areas, because these are the best areas also for fishing. So you have to be inventive in this kind of things, and it's the challenge that we face is supervise it, but also to keep it untouched part of it, because as you saw, the soil abrasion is very important. Is a very important issue. There's a lot of soil is already disturbed, and the fish and the birds need a lot of need rest.
Thank you. So, any other questions? What variables could be used to assess the impact to Natura 2000 sites for the coastal areas with the grey infrastructure? This question comes from Estonia.
Yeah, I see. What variables could be used to assess the impact? What I think is indeed looking at soil abrasion. The present, I'm not. I don't know exactly what variables you can use. The soil abrasion is one. Monitoring the you need assess the impact. Yeah, the grey infrastructure, that is actually the shipping lanes, and also the placement of wind turbines, and we are just in the beginning of using that, because the shipping lanes are very busy, but we have not yet done a lot of research on that, and the research actually just has to begin. And we see that marine research is now starting, and this kind of things, the marine protected areas are young. The management plans are being made, and we are not yet there that we know exactly what variables we could use to assess the impact of infrastructure and of the new wind turbines, cables, and these kind of things. So I leave that to the marine institutes, and that's their task to sit together, and the Germans, the Dutch, the Norwegian, and the Danish to think about it. It's a challenge to find the right ones that can be monitored easily and have something to tell about what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So while people are typing the questions, I have a question for myself.
Yeah.
Like, would you have any understanding what is happening with all kind of environmental initiatives and relevant marine policy and management planning instruments over the North Sea in relation to Brexit, as the UK is stepping down from the relevant EU directives? I guess that's quite an issue now.
Well, that's what I wonder as well, because Brexit, the British leaving the European Union, they have also very important marine protected areas, and we will see. We have, well, they said that they would just keep their marine protected areas, and their institutes are very keen on keeping them, but it's not. I'm not sure, because there are different powers in Great Britain. They are now sharing chair. They're now the chair of the meeting in Glasgow. But in the meantime, there is also an initiative in Britain to reopen coal mines. A coal mine, 300 kilometers south of Glasgow. So I don't know what they will do and how their government is going to act. And I see as.
I have a question from Pravin Kumar from New Delhi. As UK is willing to start extracting oil from the Cambo oil field west of Shetland, North Sea by 2022, what do you think of this for the region?
Well, it's also, I don't know the Cambo oil field, but it's at least it's in the deep sea, and I don't know what it means, because it's a very vulnerable area. And that's what I said net about the coal mining. I don't know what the direction is of Great Britain in the near future. I hope that they will follow the developments that they did in the past, but I'm not sure. And as they're still also their marine spatial planning documents, we can see them all, we can look at them all and can share them, but not the British. They do not yet share their documents. So I'm insecure how this will develop, and I hope it will go well in the near future. But you have to be very alert on this kind of developments.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions? So I cannot see any questions coming at the moment.
No.
So I think it means that otherwise your message was very clear to the audience. So thank you a lot for your very insightful talk, and I guess this North Sea perspective, although it's quite different in many instances from the home region of our participants, is still very refreshing in many aspects. So thank you again. And if you feel that you have any question to ask, and it would come later, just drop an email to myself. I will accumulate all the questions and send them to Professor Youngman for his answer. Also, we'll make these slides available through the e-learning system, and hopefully Rob also will send some other papers and reports
I can see
in relation to this to the topic of this session.
I will share some.
Thank you, Rob, for the session. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Okay.
As usual, we still have today time for group or individual talks and consultations. If you feel like you want have some time with any of our faculty, let us know. We can schedule this for today or any other day in the week. I'm waiting here for further 5 minutes for your messages in this respect, but otherwise the class is closed for today, and see you tomorrow. We'll have a very important day, all Italian one, and we'll hear a lot of exciting talks about a variety of ecological and broader environmental, coastal and marine issues in Italy. Thank you a lot.
Okay, I hope you enjoy it, and and if you have questions, don't feel just send it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Bye.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have any notes for tomorrow available. I must say, let me have a look again at the roster for tomorrow. So we have Fabio Fiorentino, who will talk about the fish stocks in the morning, then Francesco Filiciotto talking about underwater noise, and Rosanna Prinello talking about the Italia Gentile project and its importance for sustainability of this coastal city, Mazara del Vallo. Unfortunately, I don't have anything from the presenters. Hope we will have indeed the materials uploaded on the e-learning, but nothing for the moment. If you find it helpful, we can also record sessions tomorrow and make them available online. That's another possibility. As by the way, Peter's and Rob's sessions will be stored on a YouTube channel, so you can revisit them if you want.